Today, we have an incredible guest, Ali Awad, also known as the CEO lawyer, who went from selling electronics as a teenager to building one of the most successful personal injury law firms in the country. Ali's journey is one of resilience, entrepreneurship, and using social media to scale multi-million-dollar businesses while staying true to his identity and values. In this conversation, we'll deep dive into his upbringing, business mindset, the challenges he's faced, and the mission to empower the Muslim community to build generational wealth. Welcome to the pod, Ali.
You know what, bro? You have an incredible radio voice. You really do, Zim. Did anyone ever tell you that?
Nobody has told me that, yes.
You have the perfect radio voice, perfect tone, perfect level, like the audio level, and you know how to enunciate the word. I'm envious. I'm like, yeah, this is already gonna be good. This is already gonna be good.
It's the intro you needed.
That is a good intro. Thank you, bro. Let's jump right in because I've been interviewing my entire family, and I was like, you know what? If I'm gonna do an interview, I want it to be with someone who is an expert interviewer, and I couldn't think of anyone else. So I'm glad you took the opportunity to help us today.
Absolutely. How are you really doing today?
Today, specifically today, alhamdulillah, today's been a really good day. We did a couple of annual reviews for my attorneys. They're all doing exceptionally well. They're happy. They're committed. I actually got to spend some time with my wife in the middle of the day because of how my schedule planned out. I got to go hang out with a friend before this. I'm doing this show, and then I'm going to go and speak at Georgia State University right after this with another friend of mine. Today was a great, chill day. But yesterday was absolutely horrible.
Horrible.
Man, to be honest, the past 2 months of business have been very painful because you make these calculations on projected revenues, expected income, manpower planning, resource planning, and you make room for a margin of error. And you say, sure, I've got 10% margin of error here. Maybe we're aiming for $1 million week and it ends up being 900,000. I can live with that. But what happens when you have too many variables, sometimes the margin of error is multiplied by each individual variable. And so the past 2 months, to be honest, we've been getting kicked in the face financially. And we've had to make some aggressive changes in the company. I think there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So it wasn't just yesterday. Yesterday was just a culmination of all of that for the past 2 months. And today I'm just in a better mood, I think. So I got a suit on. I went and drove the convertible around a little bit. So I feel good today. But I don't want to check my email because I'm sure there's some disasters in there.
Well, that's fair. I guess let's deep dive a little bit more into your childhood because, my audience may not know of you. And there are obviously people who don't know about me. So let's start there. What was your first experience with business as a child? Was there a side hustle or job that made you realize, you can make money on your own?
Absolutely. So I think I referenced this in one of the first chapters in my book, The Laws of Victory. At age 5, I distinctly remember selling pictures of Dragon Ball Z characters. So we would print off pictures. This was 1995. I'd print off pictures of Dragon Ball Z characters, and at the time we would search on Yahoo because Google wasn't really a thing. And I remember typing in like Krillin or Vegeta or Goku, right? And you'd see these characters, and there would only be like 7 results that would come up. That's how early the internet was. Now imagine you type in anything on Google Images, you're going to get millions of results. But I would get those pictures and no one had them, and no one even knew where to get them. So I would print them off and I would cut the URL off the bottom so no one knew where I got them from. And then I would put them inside a plastic sleeve that I got from Walmart with a 1-inch binder. And that was my inventory. So I would show, I basically had very little cost and I would sell the pictures for like $2 or $3 a piece. And this was at age 5. And I think from that moment on, I caught the entrepreneurship.
Oh, that's amazing. In your childhood or in one of the pieces of information that I was reading, you mentioned getting over 100 fights while growing up. Were these fights were these fights about proving yourself and defending your identity or something else?
No, these were martial arts fights.
Martial arts fights.
Yeah. So it was more, I only got into a couple of fights. I've never gotten actually beaten up, I've gotten hit. I've gotten, pushed down aggressively, but I've never been the one that was on the ground getting my face pounded. Now, I have been on the other end of that. as a kid. But that was just because, well, people talk shit. Sometimes they got to get punched in the mouth. That's pretty much it. But no, the fights were all martial arts. It was competing in Taekwondo tournaments.
God. And you grew up in Dalton, Georgia, very, very industrial carpet type. I mean, it's the carpet capital of the world, if I'm not mistaken, right?
And meth.
I did not know that.
Yes, they call it Ice City.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And you grew up primarily in Dalton in a tight-knit Palestinian family. How much of your drive comes from wanting to make your family proud?
Definitely want to make my family proud, but it was mostly my dad that I wanted to make proud because I was the middle child and I always sought his attention. Even to this day, I still seek his attention. And then second to that, it was honestly the pride and the acceptance of my oldest brother too, because he's the first attorney in the family and I wanted to also make him proud. And so there was always this kind of like chip on my shoulder that whatever my dad did or whatever my brother did, that was the bar that they set. And it was my responsibility to at least achieve that much.
So one of the things I remember reading is that you started making some serious money as a teenager selling electronics.
Yeah.
And flipping products, even running an eBay store. What was the first big win in business that you can remember?
It depends on what you mean by big win. So I'll tell you the first major win was $100 sale of 5 cards, 5 trading cards. They were the Yu-Gi-Oh! Exodia cards. You know, they had like the head and the torso, the 2 arms and the 2 legs. Those 5 cards together were like the ultimate trump card in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! So I sold those 5 cards for $100 when I was like 8 years old. Then a couple of years later, I distinctly remember making a $640 sale for a flip-down monitor. I was about 11 years old. It was a flip-down TV that we installed in a customer's vehicle. This was when we had our car audio shop. And then you kind of just keep building off of that. So it wasn't anything significant to make $1,000 or a $2,000 sale, but it amplified over time where by the time I was, middle school, high school, I had a pretty robust online, and there were weeks where I was making over $10,000 as a teenager, as a young kid, and all that money would just go to my dad because I didn't have any sort of financial responsibility. It was he handled all the money.
So by 17, you're running what seems to be like a 7-figure business. Is that correct?
I wouldn't call it a 7. No, I mean, like, there's different perspectives on what a 7 figures in sales is not a 7-figure business. And I don't think I made 7 figures in sales. I think I made 6 figures, multiple 6 figures in sales in high school, definitely in college. But I never had a true 7-figure business until I became an attorney. And it was partly because the car audio business requires a very deep level of knowledge to understand, like, what is the size of speaker that fits in the trunk of this vehicle? What's the airspace that needs to occupy for the box? What type of amplifier fits? What's the wiring setup? How do you bypass the existing, head unit to get the wires done properly? And wheels and tires are even more complicated because you can't just put any set of wheels on any vehicle. So I actually eventually memorized the Red Book, which is the book that tells you all of the bolt patterns and offsets of every vehicle on the road. So by memorizing all the details of that book, I could tell you, for instance, that a Nissan Armada has the same bolt pattern as a Chevy Silverado. The only difference is, so they're both 6 on 5.5, which is 6 on 139.7 millimeters. That means every 2 bolts are exactly 5.5 inches apart, or 139.7 millimeters. What the difference is, the Chevy has a 78.1 millimeter bore, which is the centerpiece of the wheel, whereas the Nissans have 100 to 108 millimeter bore. So one is interchangeable with the other. And so this is knowledge that I had from 20 years ago because I memorized the encyclopedia of wheels and tires. And I think eventually I felt like I hit a limit, like a plateau, and I wanted to go into something bigger.
So just out of curiosity, how did you learn to manage money so well at a young age?
I didn't learn to manage money well. I just learned to save it. Yeah, I mean, when you're broke, can't afford to buy things. So, and here's a very great tip for people watching this today. The easiest way to save money is to make sure you don't have any time to spend it. So if you're working every single day, nights, weekends, throughout the day, all the time, you actually don't have time to spend money. So it's a quick little hack. If you're tired of not making enough money, maybe you need to stop spending it. Easiest way to not spend it, just to make more by working more.
And that makes total sense. So the car audio business, I believe that was called Joker's Audio.
Mhm.
Because I remember in college you were driving, an Escalade?
I still got Escalade. Yeah, I love Escalade.
With I think it was either pink or red or some other
It was molten lava
molten lava
color. Yeah,
There we go.
custom color.
Um, at the same time, while you were basically the salesperson for Jokers, correct?
I was one of the salespeople, but I was mostly online sales.
Done it.
So I've actually interviewed all of my brothers and asked them all the questions, like what would our positions be in that company today? And all of them said online sales, because I was the only one that figured out how to make money from the internet. And I figured out the arbitrage of knowledge. So here's the interesting thing. You asked me the first entrepreneurial experience. What that really was internet arbitrage. That's what it was. At age 5, I knew that I had knowledge about the internet that other people didn't. And because of that, I can make money off of that knowledge. And I just kept compounding that over the years. Same thing when I was doing eBay listings and selling stuff online. I knew how to buy stuff from certain websites and sell them on eBay where other people didn't know this website existed. And so the internet arbitrage continues to this day. I know how to create videos on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram and Facebook that are superior to other lawyers. As a result, I can generate more leads and more clients and build a better brand. So that's what you're really competing against. Is 30 years ago, I started my internet arbitrage journey, right? I learned copywriting and online sales and digital marketing at a young age. Now it's just an amplification of it by adding the video element. And so I think people look at social media, content creation, video production as like, oh, it's just a piece of your business. And to a certain degree, it is. It's an element of your marketing. But when you have 30 years of experience in something and you're only 35 years old, it's like you can't compete.
You can't compete. You can't go so hard because you have so much, I guess, so much lead time in terms of gestating all that knowledge and information and implementing it, that you have what I would call like a spike of information or knowledge that just decimates everybody else.
It's also years of putting in the work and having this 6 or 7 figure work ethic without seeing any of the results, because all the money that I made throughout my entire life, I just gave it to my dad. And then finally, when I became an attorney, I was like, okay, now it's time for me to make my own money. And so you can imagine working for 20 years with the family, and all the money that you make, you give it to the family, and your dad takes that money and sends it to his family overseas. You have a 7-figure work ethic on a 3-figure budget for decades. And so when you finally unleash that beast, a lot of things happen. First, you make a ridiculous amount of money in a short amount of time. Second, you still keep that scarcity mindset. You think at any time, it's all going to go away. I'm still paranoid right now. Oh, every day, paranoid. Because I'm like, oh, what if it all goes back? Well, I have the skills. And so even though my skill is in digital marketing and business, I have a law degree. I can still go to court and make money in that regard. I can go and sell stuff online or sell stuff in any sort of market. I speak multiple languages. So even if you put me in another country, I feel like I'll be fine. It's more of like, it's really the grace of God for putting me in a situation like a Palestinian family living in Dalton, Georgia, where you had no one to rely on but yourself. And I think people look at their upbringing as a disadvantage if they grew up poor. And that's the biggest flex that I have.
I would agree with you, actually. Because I have a similar upbringing to you. My dad was a mechanical engineer, and he was always working on cars or selling things. And
Yeah, so you were saying your dad was a mechanical engineer. Where did he go to school?
so my father actually went to Miami-Dade Community College in Miami in 1970. He had just moved from Pakistan to the United States, and the first spot he lands is in Miami.
That's so cool.
Eventually, he moves into, working for Honda and Subaru in Pittsburgh, and then eventually moving all over the place and then settling in Atlanta.
Mashallah, your dad's like 70,
He's C8 right now.
mashallah. So he's like 10 years older, because my dad graduated, I think, in the 79 or 80. Are you the oldest in your family?
Oh, yes, I'm the oldest. My dad and my mom had me and my younger brother really late. So that's why we're relatively young, but he's old. But alhamdulillah, it's a blessing in disguise. I mean, because without the wisdom of my father, I wouldn't be who I am today.
Of course.
So That's the, I guess, the benefit, alhamdulillah. So, one of the things I remember reading was that you were actually scammed out of $25,000
Yeah.
in New Orleans. And that was a major setback to many. It would be a major setback for many people. Can you take us back to that moment? What exactly happened and how did you react?
Okay. So first, I started a wholesale company called AMD Wholesalers when I was about 17 years old. And I did it with my friend Michael. And the idea was we were buying so much car audio wholesale at cheap prices that we could sell it to other car audio retailers at a slight profit increase, and so that we can get rid of more of the inventory and to have more buying power so that we have a bigger profit margin on the retail side. So I decided to create a wholesale business, which is basically just one level above retail where we're selling to the retailers. And I remember that the day that we agreed, I told like, yo, Michael, we're supposed to head out. We're going to drive from Dalton to Chattanooga. I got my mom's Mercedes loaded up with all the electronics. I had these capacitors. Those were the things that we sold the most. They were these little external batteries for car audio systems. I loaded up the car with speakers, amplifiers, head units, flip down monitors, capacitors. And I'm like, I'm just going to drive and do cold calls in Chattanooga because I know there's 3 or 4 dealers in Chattanooga that I could probably sell to. And I literally did that at age 17 because I felt like I have such a good enough product and a good enough price that you're going to want to buy from me. I didn't think anything of it. I've never been to those stores. I just Googled car audio shops in Chattanooga. It was about 35, 40 minutes away from Dalton. And the same day that we were supposed to meet up and we were supposed to have this partnership, he's like, oh man, I can't make it. And I made the decision right then and there. I don't need a partner. I'm going to do this myself. And to be honest, since then, I've never liked working with partners. I've always felt like you can't control the other person's work ethic. So what happens a lot with partnerships is that people grow in different directions. And so you might start and both be super hungry, super ambitious, and then one of them has a kid. Somebody gets married. Somebody has an illness in the family. Someone that wants to slow down. Someone gets a beach house in Florida, and now all of a sudden there's a struggle because one person's work ethic and where they are in their life is different from the other person. Well, I was blessed enough, and Allah blessed me with identifying that from day one before the business even started. And so I decided at age 17, I'm just going to load up my mom's car and drive to another city to sell car audio from the trunk of my car. And I didn't sell to any of the 10, 11 stereo shops in Dalton because all of them knew who we were and they all hated us because we were competitors. So I felt, let me go and sell to non-competitors. Interestingly, now that I'm even saying this out loud, the majority of my coaching clients in my coaching business for the law firm are outside of the state of Georgia. Because even though lawyers in Georgia will benefit tremendously from learning from me, they won't do it because they see me as a competitor. When in reality, I'm in the wholesale game and you're in the retail game. Even 20 years ago, and not 12, 17 years ago, this was the same thing. So loaded up the car, went to Chattanooga, made a couple of sales, realized it was harder than I thought. I think I made $600 that day, very small profit margin. A week later, they're calling me, hey, the TV went bad. I'm like, well, there goes all my profits. So I stopped doing wholesale and I started looking for bigger customers. I landed on this customer in New Orleans, a Palestinian guy. And we were selling this Elf Audio merchandise. It was a company that we bought, car audio. And the first day that we made this big sale, they placed like a $10,000 order with us because they're like, we love your Elf Audio stuff. And we were willing to give them terms, which means you don't have to pay us up front. You pay us over the course of 30, 60, 90 days. In pretty much all businesses, there's, net 30, net 60, net 90. It's just called terms when you're buying stuff.
It's basically a form of credit, basically.
Yeah, it's
Without any sort of interest, basically.
right, exactly. And the first day, I loaded up the trailer, drove out to New Orleans. I remember being with my dad and my younger brother, Sam. And my dad met with that guy's dad, Palestinian guys. We even prayed side by side. And they gave us a bunch of checks. Said, these checks are post-dated so you can cash them later. So we delivered the merchandise. They gave us the checks. And even though like 1 or 2 of them bounced, for the most part, they paid all of the money that was due. And so they kind of teased us with that carrot. Well, the next time they placed an order 2 to 3 times the size. And this time I decided to go to New Orleans myself. So I loaded up a trailer full of car audio and drove from Dalton, Georgia to New Orleans, Louisiana, unloaded the entire trailer myself, gave them all the merchandise, took a bunch of checks from them that were post-dated, and said, all right, yalla, assalamu alaikum. Well, a week later, first check, I deposit, it bounces. Yo, Muhammad, what's going on, bro? Oh, yeah, bro, I'm sorry. We changed accounts. We shut that account down. There's a new account. I'll send you some new checks. Like, wait, so all the checks that I have now are, like, they're not going to work? He's like, yeah, don't worry about it. And just give me till next week. I'll send you some new checks. Next week. Hey, Muhammad, what's going on, bro? Well, yeah, we opened that account back up, so you can go ahead and deposit the check. Go, okay, so I can deposit the check. Yeah, are you sure? Because I get charged a $35 non-sufficient fund fee. And I remember this so distinctly, even though it was like 15 years ago. I remember it so distinctly because I felt getting ripped off.
Mm.
And when you feel like you're getting ripped off, even to this day, it's a traumatic experience for me. When I feel like someone is ripping me off, and I feel like it usually comes from dishonesty. If you're being dishonest with me, there's a reason for that. There's something that you're hiding that I don't know. And that's enough for me to not want to do business with you ever again. And like that muscle that was exercised at that time, because long story short, none of the checks worked. I said, yo, I'm just going to come to New Orleans and get my money back. And he's like, come to New Orleans and I'll put a bullet in your head. And so I figured 25 grand, my life, I'll just lose the 25 grand. So from that point on, I decided I don't want to do any business where I don't get paid. I have to do a business where I get paid. There's no such thing as credit with me. The second thing I realized was you have to identify when people are going to rip you off. And any scenario where you are at a disadvantage and you are at the total and complete whim of the other person, that's a stupid deal to get into. So I don't get into those deals. I always have leverage in any deal that I do, or I don't do the deal. And I don't care if it's trust or, fellow Muslim brother or Palestinian or Arab. It doesn't matter. I want an arm's length deal. And if I don't need to do business with you, then I will demand leverage. If I'm desperate and I need to do business with you, then I have to trust you. But once you get to a point of strength where you don't really need to do business with anyone, some people call that FU money.
Yeah.
You don't have to do any of those stupid deals anymore. It's just those first couple of hits are really painful.
I can totally relate. One question I have for you. When you say leverage, what exactly do you mean, just for the audience so that they can understand?
Leverage is guaranteeing that you cannot get completely ripped off in a transaction. Leverage is holding on to some piece of money, property, intellectual information, or other resource that will be used as a fallback in the event that the other person does not complete the transaction or tries to renege on their promise. So leverage can come in so many different forms, but this is the context in which I'm describing leverage. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Okay, it does. So I remember also reading that, you applied to over 100 law firms and got rejected.
Yeah.
And
Globally.
what was the lowest moment during that period, and how did you keep going? Because usually after 100 rejections, 200 rejections, 300 rejections, some people simply give up. But you decided, no, I don't want to give up.
No, I did give up.
Okay.
Yeah, I just said, fuck it. I'm going to start my own firm. No, look, to be honest, bro, I realized I was not an employee type. And the exact moment that I realized it was not in Dubai, where I had a law firm fly me out to Dubai to do an interview in Arabic and English and do a negotiation, a group negotiation with other people from all over the world. And I was clearly a superior lawyer and intellectual and human being, but I was aggressive. I still am. So I realized you have to give off an employee personality where they feel like you're malleable. And I was a very direct person that seemed like this guy's going to give us a hard time. Even though I was a workhorse, I was an uncontrollable workhorse. Kind of still am to this day, if I'm being honest. But the moment I realized that I'm not fit to be an employee was actually in Kansas City It was either in Kansas or some other city with a K. It was one of the, so I got granted a first round interview here locally, and I remember this interview. I just didn't care because I didn't know the law firm. I didn't know what it was, and when they do law firm interviews, sometimes they do them in hotels, and they just tell the students to wait outside the room. They rent out one hotel room. They'll have two lawyers in there. You walk into the room, you interview, they talk to you, and then they decide if they like you, they'll invite you to a second round in their city. I think it was Oklahoma actually. Some random. I just wanted any job anywhere. I just wanted to make six figures. That's all I wanted to do. I will take any job anywhere in the world if I can make six figures. And I got to the interview inside the hotel, and as soon as I opened the door, I looked up. I'm like, "Damn, you're tall," because the guy was over 7 feet tall, and they just started laughing because everyone obviously has some sort of reaction, but they were like, "This guy is funny." And so we just started talking and almost like hanging out. And they gave me a second round interview. And I think at that point I realized people just want to know that they can work with you and that they like you more than anything else. And that's called a cultural fit. I had to learn that over time. Now, we've defined our culture different from what a lot of other law firms define their culture. But they invited me to the second round interview, spent the day with them, went out to dinner, and I noticed the exact moment that I lost the job offer. It was when I asked them, "So how much money am I going to make?" You know? And I could see in their faces that this was like, "Oh, this guy's just money hungry." This was an inappropriate comment at the time. If I would have just acted dumb, and just been like, "Yeah, it's fun, I'm really looking forward to working with you guys, ha ha ha," and just played the whole game, they would have given me an offer, but I probably wouldn't have been happy. But that's when I knew, like, I can't fake myself even for a job. And I'd rather make less money and work a job and be myself than to shoot for high levels of income in a place and in an environment that doesn't really suit me. And long story short, I graduated law school, passed the bar, and decided to just start signing up clients using my brother's law firm because no one else would hire me.
So when you started seeing your lawyer out of the trunk of your car, I remember seeing the picture, like it was out of a white BMW with
Yeah,
case file.
that was a lease. Yeah, I returned it a couple of days later.
I mean, what was the first year like? I mean, how did you hustle to get those first few clients?
So there were about 5 clients that came with me from the previous firm. I did work at a job where for about 14 months I learned personal injury, and the rule is the clients get to go with whoever they want, but as a professional courtesy, you don't take clients from your boss or your former employer. So we worked out a deal where it was like, "Hey man, look, these clients have already said if they don't go with me, they're just going to go and hire a completely different law firm." So we agreed on a fee split, a very favorable fee split. I took those 5 cases with me, and over the next few months, I just started aggressively advertising on social media. And the interesting thing was, this was February 2017 where I took that picture. I was still interviewing to work with other law firms because I wasn't confident in my abilities, even at that point. And so I just started signing up clients and just putting them under my law firm letterhead. It was called Ali Awad Law at the time. And I ended up with like 40, 50, 60 clients when I showed up to this next interview at this dude's house. And this guy wanted me to think that my 40, 50 cases that I had were worth very, very little or absolutely. And I knew what the cases were worth. And he was trying to fit me into a $60,000 a year job and say, "Sure, just give us all of your cases. We know how to handle them. We know how to work them." And I felt like I was being taken advantage of. So the truth is, I started my firm and kept my firm because no one would give me a job where they would treat me fairly. And the reason I quit my job was because they didn't pay me my bonuses. And wallahi, I feel like if I was just taken care of, like if you just keep your promise, I probably would still be working at that firm as a managing partner.
So what was the moment you realized this law firm is going to be eventually bigger than myself? Because CEO Lawyer as a brand, your law firm is quite big. I mean, you're doing over 9 figures in total revenue. currently?
We'll probably do 100 million this year, but again, it's not revenue. Alhamdulillah. I mean, it's sales essentially, because that's the settlement number, and then your revenue is the percentage of that. So you're going to be a blended 37 to 40%. So yeah, 35-40 million dollars in revenue, and then if you have a healthy profit margin, you'd want to be at around 25% profit margin on something like that. But I invest everything back into the business. I don't think CEO Lawyer is bigger than myself. I think I'm way bigger than CEO Lawyer. In fact, I've outgrown CEO Lawyer, and I'm trying to corporatize the business so that it can run without me. So it's a big firm, but it's just one facet of who I am. It's not my entire identity.
Looking back, were there any mistakes that you made in the first 2 years of running the firm that you wish you could redo?
You can't get swole just reading about push-ups. So when you look back and say, "Oh, I wish I didn't make that mistake," well, you probably wouldn't have learned the lesson.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing that I regret other than waiting too long to make a decision that I knew I needed to make. And usually it's with firing people. You have to fire people if you feel like you would not enthusiastically rehire them. And if they seem untruthful, shady, dishonest, or they lack any sort of moral capacity, they're not at the same wavelength, it's better just to go ahead and rip that Band-Aid off. And I think those are hard lessons that you're going to have to learn. I'm glad I learned them early on, but I'm still struggling with it to this day because I have a overwhelming sense of loyalty for people that work with me for a long time. And, I wish I was a little bit more, I wish I was a more aggressive business person where if someone worked with me for 3, 4, 5 years, I didn't care. You're not doing your job, you're out. But for me, I experienced what it was like working as an employee. And as an employee, not being taken care of, and then definitely not being appreciated for the loyalty that I gave to the company, it's hurtful. And so now I'm overly loyal and honestly overly generous with my employees because I never want to feel like I'm taking advantage of someone. And so it's my personality. If anything, my senior directors have to protect me from those kinds of decisions, but I don't regret anything. It's all part of the experience.
Alhamdulillah, that's amazing. So would you say you exercise more empathetic muscle, so to speak, because you could relate to people who were going to join your firm?
Look, I'll summarize it for you. Yeah, sure. I learned how to treat people fairly after being mistreated as an employee.
Mm.
And it was so hurtful. And I wanted to retaliate because of the discomfort. And I wanted to avoid that feeling at all costs. And I never wanted to make other people feel that way. So now my compensation packages are very aggressive for my lawyers in a good way. They make a lot of money. My employees make a lot of money. People have really good benefits packages. If they want to make more money, it's very open door policy. Speak up and let us know. The problem is sometimes employees rise to the level of their own incompetence. And what do I mean by that?
Mm.
You know how some people start their business and then from day one, they'll assign someone as like a VP or as a director.
Yeah.
Hey, you're going to be my director of sales. It's just me and you, buddy. Well, that's not a director of sales. That's a sales specialist, maybe. And it took me a long time to realize that positions in a company are so important. And so we've created a structure over the years. Part of it is intuitive, part of it is learning from the MBA, that you should never bring in someone at a very high level. And if you have very high levels in your company, like director, manager, whatever, and all your people are at that capacity, well, you have to create a new level, right? So the hierarchy in business is manager, senior manager, director, senior director, executive director, VP, senior VP, executive VP, C-suite.
Mm.
Chief executive officer, chief sales officer, chief of staff.
Yeah.
And so you have to get people to go through those.
Right. It reminds me of, being at Ernst & Young, very similar structure, or even in investment banking, right?
Yeah.
Similar structures completely. And even law firms for that matter.
Not so much in law firms because we have a business model and a legal model. So there's two directions that people can go. You can either become a specialist, like a practitioner in the law. So you can start as a legal assistant, senior legal assistant, case manager, senior case manager, executive case manager, paralegal, senior paralegal, executive paralegal, right? So there's a growth trajectory for those people. In every department, there's at least 7 levels of growth, which gives us 7 years of commitment with each employee. And we make it a big deal to get that position. So as of right now, there's only one executive paralegal in the company. There's only one executive case manager in the company. There's only one VP in the company, because we make it a very big deal to get that position. And the biggest mistake I made in running my business was I gave incompetent people too high of a position from day one, and I didn't let them earn it. And so now, let's say you're making $100,000 a year at your job, but you have a high position, high title. Well, I'll pay you the same $100,000, maybe even more, to come and join me, but you're not going to get the same title. You know how you're going to get that title? You earn it by beating the other people that have that title. So you've earned it in front of them. And this meritocracy that we've established in the firm creates a really strong culture. And it makes people understand it's a big deal to be a paralegal at the CEO lawyer firm, because my paralegals will beat most lawyers.
What a statement.
It's true. Put my paralegals up against any 99% of the lawyers in America cannot compete with my paralegals. Guaranteed.
I love the conviction.
It's true. You know why? Because I coach lawyers all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I know how much they're making in their firms. I know what their compensation packages are. A good lawyer makes $1 million a year in attorney's fees. A good lawyer in personal injury. All of my paralegals bring in over $1 million a year in attorney's fees.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's the requirement. That's the standard that we set. Now, they're supported, and they obviously can't make all the decisions by themselves. There needs to be a lawyer that signs off on everything. But just like nurses, the surgeon doesn't come in and do the pre-op. The surgeon doesn't come in and do the initial screening of the patient. The surgeon is not the one doing the x-rays and the MRIs. And the surgeon comes in at the very end and cuts, clips, sutures, and he's out.
Agreed.
And I'm the surgeon in my company.
So you've built one of the most followed legal brands online. And what was the first moment you knew social media was going to change everything for your business?
The first time I really knew social media was going to change everything was when I did a video on Snapchat, and I was teaching people about punitive damages. And I said, did you know that you can make $25,000 so easily if you're in an accident and you're hit by a drunk driver? If it's a drunk driver or a hit and run, you may be entitled to punitive damages, where you can unlock the entire insurance policy even if you're not hurt. If you want to learn more, shoot me a DM. And I boosted that. So I shot it on Snapchat, and then I boosted it on Instagram for $20, and I generated 8 clients from it. And those 8 clients generated hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue.
Anybody would make that trade any day, right? $20 for 8 clients that generate 100,000 or more.
But this was 2017, so no one was doing it.
So then the ads were cheap, or the boosting was relatively cheap, and the reach was much larger, I'm guessing.
Bro, it's like when you know when Google ads first came out?
I don't know the exact date, but
Or when Facebook ads first came out?
mm-hmm.
There are some of the wealthiest people in the entrepreneur space are simply wealthy because they came in a little early. That's it. If you're the first person to experiment with Facebook ads, Instagram ads, TikTok ads, Google ads, YouTube shorts, any new technology that comes up, you're going to have a disproportionate return on your money. And so I did that very early on. And honestly, my one of my regrets is not going hard enough on social media. I wish I could practice delayed gratification even more, but we're human, you know?
So what's a common mistake professionals make when they're trying to grow their business brand online? Because you've built a pretty substantial brand itself.
It's a common mistake that professionals make.
Yeah.
Their content sucks. There's no value in the stuff that you're saying. And you think you promote videos and you put out content to make yourself look good instead of thinking about what value you can give to the audience. And so, look, over the years of content creation, you start, your brand changes based on how you like to communicate in front of a camera. I've noticed I've interviewed and talked to people where they're a completely different person when there's a camera on. And it's hard to get you out of that mindset. because you're also thinking, okay, I got a 60-second clip that I could put right here, right now. And if I speak, and I can speak in 60-second clips, bro. I can speak in 15-second clips. I can go and shoot commercials at the radio station right now. You turn the timer on, I'll shoot a random commercial from my head and it'll be exactly 15 seconds. Because I've done this thousands of times. Why 15 seconds? Because that's how long a story lasts on Instagram for a while there. Why 10 seconds? That's how long Snapchat lasts before it goes to the next clip. Why 60 seconds? Because that's how long the reels were and the videos were on Instagram before it extended the videos. So I can speak in 15-second, 10-second, and 60-second intervals because I've done it thousands of times. Now, with that being said, I've practiced a lot too. And I have, if you go in my camera roll, I used to redo videos so much. So you only see the finished product online, but there's only like, what, 5,000, 6,000 posts on my Instagram? What you don't see is the 35 to 40,000 posts that could have been there. And so you also don't see the decades of experience leading up to that point. And so I just learned over time, you have to entertain people on social media. You have to give them a reason to want to engage and follow. And you have to use a healthy dose of like traps. Like, you know how they have like the
Baits, the hooks.
yeah, the clickbait. Yeah. You got to entertain, bro. You got to play the game. And if your content is good, people will find you. But if your content is good and you're good at attracting attention, like you know how to do the hooks, you know how to do the clickbait stuff, you're really good at copywriting, it's two different skills combining. And that's usually what I like to see when I'm evaluating an entrepreneur is what's your best skill and then what's your second best skill. And if both of those combined are so unique that not many people have them, you're going to be successful.
So I remember, I think we had a conversation before. You briefly, or maybe you still do, you've worked with Eddie Maloof of Bad Marketing and
Yep.
Media Marketing
I was on a call with them just now.
to scale CEO Lawyer. What's the biggest game-changing lesson you learned from him?
Biggest lesson I've learned from Eddie. You know, I'm kind of his mentor,
Mm-hmm.
but he also mentors me. And the unique thing about Eddie is he takes big risks.
Mm.
I take risks, but I don't swing for the fences all the time. I'm a little more calculated now because I have a wife and kids, and he's got a wife and kids too.
Yeah, he does.
But it's his thought process when it comes to money.
Mm.
We're similar in that regard where, you know, money's just a tool. But Eddie's unique in that he's an excellent digital marketer, but he's also got incredible communication skills, networking skills. I'll tell you, the biggest thing I learned from Eddie was, so I invited him to a mastermind event with me in California. You know Manny Klushman?
Yes.
Yeah, so I joined his mastermind group, and I was like, Eddie, let's go see Manny. Let's fly to California. I have a spot for one more person. I was trying to take my younger brother, and he dipped out at the last minute. So I was like, you know what? What's another person that's going to appreciate Manny? And so we flew to California, Beverly Hills. We went and did the tour of the mansions and the Bugattis and all this stuff. And then there was a time where we went and had a mastermind on a yacht. And I learned that networking, even with the highest level people, can be hacked. It is definitely a skill that you can master. And watching Eddie maneuver through that crowd and getting access to all the people that he wanted very quickly and grabbing their cell phone numbers and even convincing Manny to have Eddie run his ads for him. He did it in a matter of minutes. And so I think Eddie's probably super underrated in that regard. And that's the thing that I remember most distinctly. Over the years of working together, I mean, he's a brilliant guy, but don't sleep on that networking skill. I'm not as good at networking, to be honest. I like when people come to me. I'm not as good like in crowds, but in crowds, he's exceptional. And that's something that I learned was you could hack your way to network to anyone.
That's amazing. So, how do you balance authenticity with maintaining a professional image?
Um,
Or do you just let it all blend?
no, I think God fearness is the priority. And even when I curse sometimes, I think, okay, that's a little bit of my personality coming out, but that's not a good Muslim. Good Muslims should not use profanity. Um, I honestly think, will my wife not appreciate it? Will my mom be ashamed of this? But most importantly, will God approve of it?
Mm.
And so I don't have to balance authenticity with business. I'm exactly who I am in person, on camera, behind the scenes. What you see is what you get. Um, but I put a little bit of a filter on it out of respect for Muslims because I don't want someone's first perception of a Muslim potentially being something negative that I said. And so that's the only scaling, like balancing approach that I have. Other than that, man, um, it's so much easier just to be yourself because everyone else is taken.
That's an amazing answer. Yeah, mashallah. So I want to shift gears here a little bit. I want to go more towards, scaling CEO lawyer into a multi-million-dollar business. At what point did scaling become a challenge for the business? Did you have rungs where at maybe $10 million in revenue, you had a challenge here that was, or a limiting belief that didn't allow you to scale for a little while? Were there moments throughout the journey of building this company that, you had really severe challenges? And recently you just mentioned when we started the pod that, you know, past couple of months haven't been so great, but alhamdulillah, by the will of Allah, everything will become better. Um, so I'd love to answer.
I think right now, look, anything that you haven't done before is going to be challenging. So I'm very comfortable in the 7 and 8 figure realm. Very comfortable. It's not that I had done it. It's that I had been exposed to business at such a young age. And honestly, from 6 to 7 figures is not a big difference. It's just scaling your sales. From 7 to 8 figures is learning how to hire people. But 8 to 9 is systems and processes. And that's not something I'm very good at. I know things intuitively, how to do things. I'm not the best at teaching other people how to do those things. And I've realized that. And so this year is all about corporatizing the brand and corporatizing the business. So alhamdulillah, I have my cousin Ahmed, who's our VP of Finance and Risk. He has a wealth of corporate experience, and he's systematizing a bunch of departments in my company. We've really scaled up the attorneys that we have. And so now it's kind of more streamlining all of their cases, their operations. And we're trying to have very clean data across the board so that we can add an AI engine on top of it. And so this part is hard because I don't see the instant results. I don't see the immediate gratification. And as a salesman, the hardest thing is for you to keep working and not get the instant gratification. Because I know the moment I swipe your credit card, I made the sale, I'm good. And there's nothing like getting a stack of cash from a customer, bro. There's nothing like making, like, I've made $30,000 cash sales before. Cash, all greenbacks. And I've had people deliver, bags, brown paper bags full of cash for me. Whatever I'm selling them, a car audio system, rims and tires, a motorcycle, whatever I had, I'll sell it to them. That's a good feeling. And the hard part for me right now as a business owner is that in order for the CEO to be born, the hustler must die. And so I can't hustle my way out of my problems anymore. They say sales cures all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it does. But in a big organization with hundreds of employees, the sales don't happen overnight.
Yeah.
You have to have 3, 6, 9, 12-month planning. And so that's the hard part is like, you have to believe in the system, and then you have to understand the context that, okay, we're here right now because this happened last year, this happened 3 months ago, this happened here. Oh, we're here now because we made this mistake. And that's something that I'm still trying to learn. And, with technology and dashboards and smart people around you, you can get through it.
So you emphasize hiring rock stars instead of just filling seats inside of a business.
Yeah.
What's the first thing you look in a potential hire?
So we have core values in our company.
What are those core values?
So they're hunger, humility, excellence, ethics, accountability, respect, and teamwork. Heart. You spell heart. Hunger and humility, excellence and ethics, accountability, respect, teamwork. Heart. It used to be great. I had G for growth. But I actually decided to change that because some people end up growing out of your firm. And I'd rather have people be hungry. Hungry for knowledge, hungry for the education, than for them to just be growth-minded. Because you can grow a tumor.
Yeah.
But hungry is that insatiable appetite for knowledge. And so really, when I'm hiring people now and I'm interviewing, I don't really care too much about whether, am I going to like this person? Am I going to be able to hang out with them and, we have a couple steaks and have a good time? That's part of it. I'm looking for someone that is hungry and won't take advantage of me. By the way they ask their questions, I can tell if this is someone that is manipulative or overly aggressive to the point where they care more about money than ethics. And I like people with morals, not fake morals where they want it for the gram, but, honest, sincere, hardworking people. And to give you some specific answers, I like to ask people what they were doing at age 12. And if it's anything to do with competition or hustling, making some money, I know I've got a hard worker. Now it's just a matter of, is that work ethic channeled in the right direction?
That's so. Have you ever made a bad hire, and what made them a bad hire for your business, or for AMD, or for the eBay business, or even Jokers, or even the law firm?
Yeah, tons of bad hires. Have bad hires right now. Usually it's not the employee's fault. Usually it's your fault. And either you have the right person in the wrong seat, or you failed to give them a clear identification of their KPIs and what would make them successful in their role. So now, before we hire anyone, we create a job description. Here's the very specific tasks that you're going to do. And those tasks become your KPIs, your key performance indicators. And if you do those tasks at, let's say, 1.5x, like 50% more than what we expect you to do, then you get a bonus. And if you do it double, then you get a bigger bonus. And so you have to simplify the work that people are doing. So I know that there's KPIs for almost every position in my company. But if you hire someone to solve a problem for you, it's not going to work. You have to solve the problem by identifying the specific skills that are needed to solve the problem. And so you hire for those specific skills and you ask if they can execute on those specific skills. And if you're not qualified to ask people about their position, like I'm not qualified to hire an HR director, I'm not qualified to hire a CPA, I'm not qualified to test someone on their trial skills. I've only had one trial and I lost it. So you have to bring in an advisor at a higher level that can ask the questions for you. And usually those people will work for, very cheap in proportion to what it would cost to hire like a headhunter, because they'd want a percentage of their salary. So you should hire people with a specific job description, show them what the successful first 90 days is going to look like, tell them what a great result would be for them. If you accomplish this after 90 days, you can make more money, you can get these bonuses. And you also have to get buy-in from them by getting them to agree that here is the bare minimum you need to do to keep your job. That's what I like to call KPIs. And the way I get buy-in from employees on KPIs is I first ask an employee, hey, what are you currently doing in your job that if we were to bring in a new employee under you that's doing the same thing, what would be the bare minimum that they need to do for you to think that they're successful? And what happens is they're going to give you pretty high expectations for the new employee, right? Because they don't want that extra competition. And so you say, oh, okay, so they have to be able to open up 5 new files. They have to be able to draft 10 demand letters. They have to be able to do this many settlements or this many conferences or schedule this many mediations or depots. They have to take this many phone calls. They have to close this many leads. Whatever position it is, there's a specific work that needs to be done on a regular basis in that role. And so your employee would tell you, what are the key performance indicators? What are the measures of success for a new employee coming in at the same position? And your own employee will tell you what those KPIs are. And then you simply flip it and say, okay, well, if this is what's expected of a new employee coming in, what do you think we should expect of an existing employee? And usually you should be higher, but we like to keep it at the same level. Okay, well, you expect that from a new employee. Is it fair to say that that should be your KPIs in order for you to keep your job? And I like saying it that way. I like saying, hey, is it fair to say that if you do this at a minimum, that that's enough for you to keep your job? If you go below that number, would it be fair to say that you shouldn't have a job here? Because you would treat a new employee that way. So can we agree to some sort of standards? And I like just being direct. And right after that, I put it in an email and I get them to buy in. I say, thank you for the conversation today. As discussed, your KPIs for this position are this much per week. And if you go more than 2 weeks without hitting these numbers, you will get a formal warning. After that, you will be terminated. Please confirm. But I don't just do stick. I always include a carrot with every stick. So I say, these are your KPIs at a minimum to keep your job. In addition, if you can beat this by 25% or 50%, then you'll get a $1,000 bonus for the quarter. If you beat it by this much, you'll get a $2,000 bonus for the quarter. And so I show them that, hey, I want you to do this bare minimum, but I also want you to make a lot of money. And so if you are looking at the bare minimum to keep your job, you're not going to be an employee that's going to last here. And if you look at, oh, I can accomplish this bare minimum and I want to make more, we're going to get along just fine.
So one question that comes into my mind is when companies begin to scale, they begin to struggle to maintain that culture. What are things that you're putting in place currently that would allow you to scale that culture as well?
Well, I pass down my culture to my leaders, and then I teach my leaders to pass down that culture to their subordinates. But as a virtual firm, it's very hard to maintain culture. So I have to overcompensate when I'm doing my stand-up meetings. We have a weekly stand-up meeting every week. Entire company gets on a phone call every week. And usually we're introducing a new employee because we're hiring people every single week. Or there's a promotion, or there's some win that we want to share. There's some stories. There's new announcements. So I overcompensate by having a super exciting and ostentatious persona during those calls. I try to be funny. I try to be entertaining because I want to entertain my people too. But in addition to that, we try to arrange 2 or 3 in-person events throughout the year where we fly in everyone. We just spend a day, 2 days, just hanging out, eating good food, talking. And during those events, I always stop by the bank and get a stack of cash. So we make it a lot more fun when we have like some trivia. We're like, all right, guys, $100 for the first person that does this. Or all right, $1,000. Sometimes we'll even give away Rolexes. So I want to make it fun so that it's not all just work, work, work. Most of the time it's work, but when it's time for fun, we're not working. And so that's why I also schedule our in-person events during work hours, because it's no longer fun if you have to come in on a weekend for a company outing. That's bullshit.
Completely agree with that, actually. I remember that you mentioned briefly, whether it was on Facebook or somewhere, that you actually had invested into Crumble Cookies or real estate and other businesses. What's your investment philosophy in terms of investing in particular asset classes or things like that?
My investment philosophy now is you should only invest in things that you're confident and competent in. So everything that I've invested in that I'm not competent in ended up being a failure. I'm very competent in marketing, competent in the law, competent in personal injury, and I'm competent enough in real estate to not make too huge of a loss now because I bought an apartment complex when I was in law school. Renovated it, fixed it, learned a lot of things in that process. So now I've actually dumbed it down. I invest in other law firms. I invest in other companies that I know inside and out, and the surplus goes into real estate.
Mm. What's a business investment that didn't really go to plan? And which one really tested you?
Well, I started a tech company a couple of years ago, burned through $2.5 million, lost all of it. That taught me that tech is not as easy as you think because there's a lot of variables. But the main thing I learned was that in a lot of corporations, you can bullshit your way very, very far. Um, I'm very good at bullshitting. I can say things with a very straightforward face and make you believe them. And there's no way I'm the only one with that skill. So people do that in companies all the time. And so you have to dig deep into identifying the bullshit. And when there's that accountability, which is why that's a core value of ours, there has to be some sort of accountability. And every time I drive down and say, all right, let's talk about this specific thing, and I keep pushing and pushing and pushing until we get to the result, uh, people feel that fuel, that fear under them, and they know that the job is not guaranteed. You're here because you're delivering. The moment you stop delivering, well, obviously, depending on how long you've been here, we'll see if we can accommodate. But if there's a more capable person that can take your role, we need you out. And so my investments over the years have taught me that if you don't know the business inside and out, you're going to get ripped off because anyone can bullshit you very easily.
100%. It also comes down to a Warren Buffett philosophy, right? He only invests in things that he fully understands, and anything that he doesn't, he simply doesn't. So, very similar philosophies from that perspective as well. How do you decide to say no to an investment opportunity? It basically just it doesn't fit your profile, essentially, right? Or how what would you say no to any particular law firm if you're actively looking to buy a law firm? What would be those criteria, or I guess why would you reject a law firm?
They don't appreciate the value that I bring to the table. Um, you know, let's say you have a dental office, and the one dental office in this town is generating $1 million a year in revenue. And then you have another company that has 60 dental offices throughout the entire region, and each location is generating about $1 million in revenue. How much do you think the multiple will be on the value of your business on that $1 million in revenue compared to the one with $60 million in revenue with 60 locations? The multiple is significantly higher on the bigger business because they have larger market share, they have deeper infrastructure, and even though they make the same amount of money per unit, they're going to get a much higher multiple. Well, that applies to almost every industry. So as a law firm owner, I can tell you that when you partner up with our law firm, simply you being associated with CEO Lawyer is going to increase the value of your law firm because of our portfolio value. And it's just a matter of getting into all of the different jurisdictions before the total enterprise value gets to an extremely high multiple. And so I don't need to pay anyone to buy their law firm because you giving me equity in your company and me being willing to give you my resources, my infrastructure, my training, my coaching, and most importantly, my time, it's going to increase the value of your company. And we'll put it in writing. It's like, hey, if I don't increase your value, your revenue by 2x over the next 2 years, I don't need any equity. I don't need any piece of it. And so I only do business with people that actually understand the value that I'm bringing to the table. And if not, well, give it a little bit of time and I'll have an office in your location either way.
Okay. So, what inspired you to start the CEO Lawyer Summit? And what's the biggest impact you want it to have?
That's a good question. CEO Lawyer Summit, the first one I did was October 12th and 13th of 2019. I didn't call it the CEO Lawyer Summit event in the beginning. It was called the Professional Company. And I was planning on doing a seminar to teach professionals how to do social media advertising in 2017. In 2017, I knew that I was good enough at social media to charge other people to learn from me about it. So the only problem was I didn't make enough money. I didn't think that anyone would come and listen to me if I hadn't already successfully done it myself. So I shelved the idea in 2017 for the Professional Company. I went all in on my law firm. The following year in 2018, I spent about $6,000 in ads, generated 3.2 million in settlements. And in the following year, I'm like, okay, now I've got a little bit of proof of concept. I think people are going to want to listen. And then by then I had maybe 50 or 100,000 social media followers. The business started kind of growing and I had proof of concept. So the goal with the CEO Lawyer Summit, honestly, I just wanted to show people my talents. Like, I know there's a better way to run your business. I know there is. And if you come and spend 2 days with me, I promise you're going to learn something new. And it was just a way for me to showcase my creative talent. But also, it was the easiest way to attract high-level lawyers from all over the country to my city, to my town, to my front doorstep. And I leveraged that over the years by teaching people social media in exchange for them teaching me the best things about their business. And eventually, you learn the best core competencies that every law firm, every business has. You take the best of each person, you apply it to your business, and you end up with a CEO lawyer.
So just out of curiosity, how do you begin to balance running, a profitable business and giving back to the community, plus your family? How does that all mesh together?
Well, there's seasons. So there's seasons where I'm not working that much and I'm chilling. And usually the following season after that, I'm working like crazy. I'm currently in the work like crazy season. But with Ramadan coming soon, I'm going to be in the chill season. And I want to focus on my worship, focus on my ibadah, focus on my family. And after that, in April, that entire month is going to be dedicated to the boot camp, the mastermind company outing. So I'm right back into it. And then May or June, probably going to go to Europe for a month, and just unwind with my family and just chill. So it just depends on the season. I don't think of work-life balance as a daily thing. I think of it as like a quarterly thing, you know? In a quarter, you might have more vacations, more time, more splurges. Then there's going to be times where you're really focused on work. And so for me, it's just a measure of balancing what's important at that time. But there are certain things I don't negotiate on. So I take my kid to school every morning. That's daddy time. I like to put my kids to bed. That's daddy time. I like to have dinner with my family every night. I don't miss dinner with my family. I mean, sometimes I'm late. My wife doesn't like it, but that's family time. And what happens is I put all of my meetings from like 10 to 5:30, Monday through Thursday, and then sometimes Friday mornings. So I force myself to be super efficient during those times. And if you open up the door for your business to seep into every aspect of your life, it will take up all of your time. And so it's just as simple as not scheduling anything before 10 a.m., not scheduling anything after 5 p.m. So
Time management, ultimately.
that's all it is. Yeah. Not that I'm the best at it,
Yeah.
but I'm working on it.
So one of your long-term goals that you've mentioned in multiple facets is to build the first Muslim-owned hospital in the United States. What's the vision behind that, and where are you making it happen?
Well, the vision is to elevate the status of Muslims. The vision is to put Muslims in a more favorable light in Western countries. That's probably a very uphill battle to climb, but I think we can all agree that a hospital that provides medical care to people, whether or not they can afford it, is probably a good thing for society. And so, in pursuit of building the first big Muslim hospital in America, I'm finding a lot of people that are interested in that same goal, connecting with a lot of influential entrepreneurs, wealthy folks, doctors, and it helps with having those kinds of connections as you grow. Who knows what it's going to turn into? I think it's more of vocalizing the goal, and the more you talk about it, the higher likelihood it is to happen. And believe it or not, we actually started with a field hospital in Gaza. So it just turned out that way, that we donated all of our ticket sales from the summit last year to help to heal Palestine, and a big chunk of that donation is going towards a field hospital in Gaza. So it didn't work the way that I exactly wanted it to, but that's, alhamdulillah, that's a start.
I mean, it's so admirable. I mean, on so many different levels, because even I have that aspiration or that dream to do from my parents' home country of Pakistan, and in India too. What do you want your legacy to be beyond just being the successful lawyer?
Um, I don't think too much about my personal legacy. My legacy is my children. And so if I have God-fearing children, respectable, respectful children, um, upstanding members of the community, strong men, uh, eloquent, educated, world travelers, multilingual, hufaz. These are all very high standards. They have to be higher standards than me. So honestly, I would say in this decade, in my 30s, I'm not so ambitious in terms of my career anymore. I feel like it's just money, and at some point you can dumb it down to simply the level of what's my percentage of growth year over year. And I've been at 100% for a while. I don't know if that's going to be sustainable, but I'm sure I can get 30 to 50% per year with significantly less effort. I'm happy with that because now everyone gets to eat, but my priority is going to be my children. And I've already told myself by May 2028, when my first kid, Adam, is 7, we're going to start taking summer vacations together as a family. And I want my kids to spend as much time with me as possible because the best thing that I can do is impart the knowledge that I have to the next generation.
You've been quite outspoken about Palestine, even at personal risk in some cases. What's the moment that made you decide that you have to speak out? Or was it always just an innate desire for your people?
I didn't have a moment that I decided to speak out. I've been speaking out forever. It's just with the amplification of the genocide, uh, I realized that I had a social media platform, and I've been a proud Palestinian Muslim my entire life. It just so happens that now people discovered it after October 2023. Um, but I think I dug my heels even deeper when I realized how many Zionists there are in the legal space. And it's not a good feeling when you're mistreated just because of who you are.
Mhm.
Um, Not because of my competence, not because of my skills as a lawyer, not because of all the good things that I've done for my community. None of that matters if I'm Palestinian. And so I think it's opened up my mind to how the world really is. Um, there are definitely groups of people that are sadistic and manipulative, and they will act like your friends, but it's only until they think you're no longer one of them. And I've always been an outcast. I've always been the other. This is just a continuation of it. I didn't expect that there would be so much of a global reach from social media, but it's an obligation. It's not like
Mm.
I would much rather be unknown and have no followers and no respect from the Palestinian community in exchange for not having a genocide at all. Obviously, I'm speaking up because it's important and because I have to and because there's not enough people doing it, and especially as a lawyer, there's not enough. And so I think it's just a measure of getting people to see that you can speak up, you can be yourself as long as you build resilience within yourself and your business and be prepared for a lot of attacks. Better have some thick skin.
So, obviously, you faced backlash for your stance. How did you navigate that? Did it affect your family in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, I mean, we've gotten death threats. I've had people follow us around. I still to this day I keep getting spam texts from people saying, what's it like for all your children dying and kids blowing up in school and you think you're winning? Yeah, it's almost a daily thing. Um, Bro, I've had thick skin my whole life. I part of me wants to protect my children from seeing that, but I actually think the sooner they're exposed to the vitriol and the hate in the world, the sooner they realize we have to take care of
They
ourselves.
become stronger as a result of it.
They need to experience racism to understand that it exists.
So, there's a lot of pressure on Muslim business owners to stay silent on political issues in general. What advice do you have those who want to speak out but fear the consequences?
Well, I think if you're afraid to speak out about your business, okay, if you're afraid to be public about your religion or your cultural identity, or who you support, specifically Palestine, because that seems to be the hot topic right now, and you're worried that you're going to lose a little bit of business or a little bit of money, then that means you respect money more than your morals. Now, if it's going to be devastating for you and your family, you probably shouldn't speak up. You probably should build a wall of resilience first, so that when it's time to speak up, you're prepared for the consequences. Alhamdulillah, years ago, I started diversifying my marketing. I started diversifying my law firm, my businesses, my investments. So I'm prepared for any sort of backlash, alhamdulillah. But most importantly, you have to only fear God and never fear man, because that's what we were taught. You have to only fear Allah. And if you really only fear God, then wallahi, you have nothing to worry about.
Because Allah is Ghafur Rahim. He's the protector. He's so much for us. And if we depend on Allah, at the end of the day, Allah will give. If He's given to the birds and the bees and to everyone else.
Absolutely. There's also an element of like this phrase, i'aqal wa tawakkal. So i'aqal means think. Wa tawakkal, do. Go ahead, fi sabilillah. Right? So first you must think before you act. It's not enough just to act, and it's not enough just to think. You must think, and then you should act. It's like prayer alone is insufficient. Prayer plus action matters. Thinking alone doesn't matter. Oh, I have this great business idea. Yeah, so does 1,000 other people lined up. Let me see the execution of it. So you do have to think, and you have to be calculated. So there are definitely things that I feel that I won't say because I understand the public scrutiny.
How do we push more young Muslims towards entrepreneurship and high growth industries instead of traditional careers? Because I think having more Muslims become entrepreneurs has a benefit for the entire ummah at large. And I just want to hear your thoughts on this.
You have to make it cool for young kids to see that entrepreneurship is cool. You pull up in a McLaren at the masjid and you let them come and take pictures. That's a form of sadaqah. That's a form of ibadah. You let kids see the big rims, the exotic car, the nice watches, because that's what you're competing against, the ball players and the athletes and the superstars. That's what you're competing against. You have to make them see that you are cool by being a Muslim entrepreneur, and you're cool by showing up to the masjid in your Islamic traditional thobe. It's cool to be a Muslim entrepreneur, and you have to understand that kids are paying attention to Mr. Beast and all these other social media influencers, and that's what you're competing against.
Absolutely, totally true. 100%. What specific resources, mentorship, capital, or networking do you think we are lacking in for Muslim entrepreneurs and Muslim ummah? And how do we fix that from your perspective?
I think we have to stop thinking about what does the entire ummah want. I think we should start thinking about what do I need to do to be a benefit to the ummah. And so I think it's important to pull up in an exotic car to the masjid and let the kids see it. I think it's important to go and speak at high schools and colleges in front of kids and have a stack of $100 bills to pass them out to the kids. Because for me, it's not that big of a deal. For them, it's the coolest thing that's happened all year. And so it's just a matter of I can make an impact in my little community right here, and that's what I'm going to do. And if I can document it and record it and maybe influence and inspire other people, inshallah, that's what I'll do. So the real problem that I see with the Muslim ummah is that we're waiting on someone else to speak up and stand up. And that's the real problem, because everyone is waiting for someone to stand up and speak up. Why not you?
100%. So do you see yourself ever creating a formal mentorship program, fund, or incubator specifically for Muslim entrepreneurs at some point?
I think there's a lot of those. I think Muslim entrepreneurs can figure out a way to connect with me already. And if you can't, you just haven't done enough work, right? So the people that put in the effort to connect with me, you know where I work, you know where I live, you know where I go to school, you know what masjid I go to. So khalas, you can find me. But I would rather spend my time in the personal injury space, because that's where I have the highest level of skill, the highest level of impact. So before I do plan on doing a Muslim mastermind entrepreneur event this year, inshallah. I'm going to try to delegate it to one of my team members, because I think it's just cool to have a room full of like the biggest Muslim influencers on social media, just us hanging out and doing business with each other. And I want to be in a position where I'm facilitating business amongst those people. That's really what I'm more interested in. I just want Muslims to do business with other Muslims. But for my specific primary goal, because I don't have unlimited time, I want to first tackle the personal injury business on a national level. And then once I feel confident in that regard, I'll start moving into other practice areas.
You know what's so interesting is that actually that was part of the mission of Diary. Actually, that was actually part of the mission of Diary of a Muslim Entrepreneur. It was to expose the idea of how can we walk with Islam and business together. So then that way the youth can see this and that they can learn and grow and take, such as yourself as an example, or myself or others, and then take those little tidbits of information and assemble something that's useful for them.
Absolutely, man. It's just people have to just get started. So there's already an incubator program in California that I'm aware of. I think there's
Alif?
Yeah, Alif. You just have to be in those places, man. The interesting thing is that, like, in my world as an entrepreneur, as a lawyer, very well known in the legal space as a business owner, but that's a very small piece of the legal industry. So when I go and speak at other events where they're more interested in corporate world, they're more interested in public service as lawyers, like working for the government, or they're more interested in like clerkships, working as judges, working under judges and things like that. People don't know me. And it's almost like I don't belong there, because their entire world, their entire identity is, I just want to go to law school, go and work as an assistant district attorney, work there for a couple of years, maybe after 5 or 10 years, become the district attorney. And then after 10 years of service to the government, then they'll pay my student loans. And that's the capacity of their thinking. And so that's way harder. It's way harder to change the minds of those people than the Muslim entrepreneurs that are already seeing. I'm probably going to go to them last. The lawyers that don't understand entrepreneurship, I can't change the mind of someone that can't even imagine a different world.
Totally agree. So if we're having this conversation again 10 years from now, what kind of impact do you hope to have made in the Muslim business world?
Well, I hope to have the biggest law firm in the country. Personal injury. Majority Muslim lawyers, majority Muslim support staff, majority Muslim businesses that we work with. I feel like I can probably make $1 billion a year impact over the next 10 years. And I'd like it to be mostly to people in my community that I feel when they make the money. Because look, if I'm doing $1 billion a year in revenue, like 70-80% of that is going to go to the people around me, right? So as long as I keep working with good people, and it's not just Muslims, it's people that also like to work with Muslims and people that see us as equals, because we're still in America. It's still a Western system. And I think if I just continue working, and I'm still happily married with healthy children, and my children are learning and growing, and in 10 years, I'd like for my kids to be self-sufficient as 12 and 14-year-olds. I'd like for them to feel like I felt when I was 12 and 14. You can drop me off anywhere in the world and I'll be fine. I think that's so much more important, because I don't mind if I die with a net worth of 600 million compared to 800 million. That's not going to make a difference, right? I care more about that I take those important hours and put them into my children, put them into my family, put them into my community.
What an amazing, amazing conversation. I thank you so much for spending this evening. And that basically is it. Actually, one of the other things I wanted to ask is where can people find you online?
I'm CEO Lawyer on social media, but I am in the process of switching and creating more of a personal brand. So personal content will be on Ali Jamal Awad. So at Ali, A-L-I, Jamal, J-A-M-A-L, Awad, A-W-A-D. On Instagram, on Facebook, Ali Jamal Awad is also where you'll be able to find my book, The Laws of Victory. So, but also just show up to a masjid in North Atlanta and you'll find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ali.
Thank you, bro. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.